train journeys are among the most epic and hardcore on the planet.
There's like ice picks stabbing at my stomach wall.
Taking people through the world's harshest environments.
No train has ever gone further north than this one right here.
Overcoming technical challenges.
Look at this, I don't want to go over this in a train.
These trains are a vital link to remote communities.
People live along the tracks, so this is their only means home.
Sustaining a region's economy.
There's one of the sugarcane carriages that didn't quite make it.
And even changing the course of history.
It's because of this line that the country feels united.
These are the world's tough trains.
I'm in the Caribbean island of communist Cuba. Fantastic people, fantastic history, and I'm going to see it all through the eyes of the train transport, man. It's going to be tough out there. They've got tough trains, they're never on time, they're falling apart, and every day is going to be fantastic. Look at this. Whoa! Lying just over 100 miles off the coast of the US of A, communist Cuba is the largest of all the Caribbean islands. Starting from Havana, my train journey through Cuba takes me to the city where the revolution was won, Santa Clara, and then via Cienfuegos to spectacular Trinidad, the historic heartland of the Cuban sugar industry. What I find amazing about Cuba is they were one of the first countries in the world to build a rail network. And they started in 1837. It wasn't built for passengers. It was mainly built to transport sugarcane all over the island. Carrying on my journey from sugar-rich Trinidad, I returned to Santa Clara before heading to my final destinations, Moron and Ciego de Ávila, where I end my trip with a nostalgic ride on one of the Cuban sugar industry's fabulous old steam trains. Cuba's capital, Havana, is a great place to start my journey and get a feel for the country. It's full of character, buzzing with life, a riot of colour and crumbling history. Things are slowly beginning to change here, but remarkably, against all the odds, Cuba is still hanging in there as one of the world's last surviving communist regimes. Wherever you go in Havana, you're reminded of the revolution that took place over 50 years ago. The sense of Cuba being stuck in time is added to by all the amazingly preserved pre-revolution 1950s American cars. I'm here in Cuba to travel by train, but even so, I can't possibly ignore the cars. Unbelievable. Look at these things. They're just so stunning. They're so beautiful. They're like pieces of art. And it's not just like one or two. They're just everywhere in this city. And of course, you got to have a ride. You can't come here without having a ride. Gracias, senor. Feel that leather on your butt. Forward, Jeeves. Almost all visitors to Havana take a ride in a classic American car, but very few, if any, foreign tourists travel by train. No doubt there's a good reason for this, and soon I'm going to find out why. My luxurious car ride is coming to an end as we're arriving at Havana's central train station. Wow. Oh, gracias. Whew. Now that is what a grand central station is all about. That's a bit of a downer. And there's only one train that leaves to Santa Clara, and that leaves in the evening. So I've left my bag there, you know, that's not too bad. I can just go and have a little look around now. I've got almost the whole day until my long-distance train leaves for Santa Clara tonight. So happily, I've got time to check out Havana's most historic local railway. It's very relevant to the history of the revolution that in the early 20th century, most of Cuba's railways and most of Cuba's sugar mills were foreign-owned by companies from Europe and the US of A. One such company was the famous American chocolate manufacturer, Hershey's. In the 1920s, Hershey Chocolate built their very own railway. It's over the water there. It went 30 miles into Cuba to their massive sugar mill. All the refined sugar would come back here to the port in Havana, and then it would get exported to America. And that railway is still running today. To get across Havana Bay, I take a short ride on a small passenger ferry. Arriving on the other side, I'm just in time to catch a waiting train. Today, the historic Hershey line is Cuba's only electric railway. It looks more like a tram than a train to me, but in the 1920s, this was like high-tech. It's amazing that it's still going now. The electric trains still in use today on the Hershey line are antiques, dating back to the 1940s. But even so, the railway has a reputation of being one of Cuba's most reliable lines. Although apparently, that's not saying too much. Hershey, all the way.
Hershey,
Hershey.
140.
Look at that, how many holes are in there? How many stops is that, more like? From Havana, the journey of just 30 miles to the old sugar mill company town of Hershey takes as long as an hour and a half. That's an average speed of just 20 miles per hour. Not exactly lightning fast, but at least it means that it isn't too dangerous for me to take up the offer of briefly driving the train. If possible, just for a second. Yeah? You sure? I've got to keep it on the rails, yeah? Keep it straight ahead. Okay. Okay, look at this. Does that... What? Hold on, listen. Does it get better than this? I've only been in Cuba like for a day, and now I'm driving a train and... Grow up where we are. Okay, I'll leave it now. Por favor. Gracias. Thank you. Wow, this is like nothing I expected at all. It's dead as a doornail. Oh. At the time of the revolution, when the Hershey mill was nationalised, along with all of Cuba's sugar mills, Cuba had been the world's biggest sugar exporter. Yeah! Oh, look at this. This is like one of the massive wheels that they used to crush up all the sugarcane, all gallons and gallons of the juice. Imagine it, churning out gallons and gallons of the stuff. Oh. After the revolution, however, following decades of the USA's economic embargo, combined with the collapse of the Soviet Union, 2/3 of Cuba's sugar mills have closed down in recent years. To think that it was still in production only 10 years ago, just 10 years. Cuba's economy is still struggling, and given the closure of the Hershey sugar mill, the train line might well have been shut down too. But despite the lack of freight today, happily this historic railway lives on as a passenger service. By the time I make it back to Havana, I'm just in time to catch tonight's long-distance train to the city of Santa Clara. Just checking out the toilet, most important thing. Oh. The downer about travelling on trains at night as soon as we're out of Havana, I'm not going to see anything. It's a bit of a shame. From Havana, it's a distance of around 180 miles to my destination, the city where the revolution was won, Santa Clara. If the train sticks to the timetable and takes 6 hours, the speed of my progress on Cuban trains will increase to all of 30 miles an hour. To be honest, this isn't bad. Everyone's got their little cubicles. It's quite comfy. He's putting his bed down so he can have a little snooze. Hola. Hola. Whew. It's like being drunk. Gracias. Buenas noches. That's so terrible. I don't know what it is. Doesn't sound Cuban to me. Sounds wrong, but at least you can move to it. Try not to touch that when you go past the electrics, yeah? Oi.
Yeah, that's what they're telling.
Is it, the train is completely
That we
naked?
have to go running to Haruku.
Yeah, see. Oh, man, I can't believe it. The train is completely and utterly broke down. Halfway through the journey, everyone's got to sleep on the train now. The train remains broken down for an incredible 6 hours before finally my prayers are answered and the train gets moving again. We were supposed to arrive in Santa Clara at 3 a.m, but by the time the train eventually arrives, it's mid-morning. Oh, boy, 6 hours. Oh, man. At least I saved on accommodation, I suppose. I stink, I'm knackered, I'm smelly, but hey, at least I'm here. Oh, taxi? Oh, it's okay. I actually think this is faster than the train that I was on. Hey! Oh. One of the country's biggest provincial cities, Santa Clara, is renowned in Cuba for one thing above all. In late 1958, it was the location of the final major battle of the revolution against the hated dictator, General Batista. More than half a century later, the man who commanded the revolutionary forces in Santa Clara remains famous worldwide. Here in Santa Clara, the big revolutionary hero is him up there. They love him, Che Guevara. It was here in Santa Clara where the decisive battle of the revolution took place. And because this town is so important, it's right bang in the middle of the island, plus the main railway goes right the way through, so if you hold this place, you almost hold Cuba. Batista knew this, so what he did, he sent an armoured train down the track to meet the revolutionaries. He had 400 soldiers in there, he had weapons, he had ammunition, he just thought nothing can go wrong. But he didn't realise that the revolutionaries had a secret weapon, and that was a simple bulldozer. There it is, the famous bulldozer. Look at that. Must be the only bulldozer in the world that's like on display on the plinth and like, all hail to the bulldozer. Fantastic. And rightly so as well. Also preserved here in memory of the battle are some of the armoured train's carriages. Luckily for the rebels, the train driver didn't notice that the railway tracks had been lifted up by the bulldozer. And as soon as the train derailed, it was immediately ambushed. Oh, look, there it is. This is the train that's just been derailed. The most extraordinary thing about this whole battle is the fact that there are only 23 revolutionaries against 400, and that's amazing. They surrounded them, shoot, 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 and the soldiers thought that there was hundreds of them, so the battle didn't last long. And when Batista back in Havana heard about the defeat, he absolutely bottled it, and then 2 days later, he fled the island. This is what I love about Cuba. It's like everything happens on the streets. Day and night, everybody's out, you know, it makes a real buzzy atmosphere. Got everything going on. There's even a bit of music over there, of course. Cuban music has such an infectious rhythm. It even gets me dancing. If I didn't have another train to catch, I'd happily stay here for hours. Woo! Bravo! Hey, bueno! Woohoo! Look at that! Ow! Oh, oh, oh! That is an absolute beauty, and it's my train. I tell you what, I'm turning into one of those, like, sad train spotters. That's the 264 from Camagüey. Make a little note of that. Next destination is the neighbouring province of Cienfuegos, where I'm going to see how trains help with the harvesting of sugarcane. In the meantime, there's plenty of fun to be had on the way. Again, there, I tell you, I might have to get my licence train driver, you know, because I've so many trains that I'm driving. I love pulling on big levers. I want to, like, there's a little flick switch here. There's a red thing that says danger on there. There's the bell that makes this noise. Oh, listen, oh. Hello, yeah, get some more coal up. What, it's diesel? Don't be so rude. Wow, check this out, unbelievable. Forget everything you know about train travel. This is the best way to be on a journey on a train, right at the fun. It's mental, look at this. It's like the wind is blowing me back, the engine's pushing me forward. Oh, it's like the best fairground ride in the world. Look at that. No messing about, that's a real mechanic. Forget your tools, just use that. I'm too old for this lark, man. Woo! Don't show the kids, though. Hey, okay. From Santa Clara, it takes around 3 hours for my train to reach the provincial capital, Cienfuegos. So by the time we arrive, it's just after dark. Oh. Wow. If a journey gets better than that, I'll be a happy man. Situated on the coast, Cienfuegos, by Cuban standards, is relatively well off, with a reputation as one of the country's most attractive cities. Early in the morning, joggers are out on the city waterfront, and the streets provide a home for plenty of other activities too. Punching a bit
above my own weight, do you know what I mean? Watch out, here comes another. I told you everything happens on the street, and if Cuba is famous for any sport, it's definitely boxing. They're brilliant at it, and this is where they start, about that age. All right, it's just joking. I don't want no trouble, all right?
In Cuba, life isn't easy for most people, so it's no wonder that kids are taught to toughen up at an early age. I'm taking a short trip out of Cienfuegos into the countryside, where the sugarcane harvest is in full swing. Cuba's sugar industry has suffered a lot of closures in recent years, but I've arranged to visit one of the minority of sugar mills that remain open.
This is the so-called 14th of July sugar factory, which was renamed after the Cuban Revolution and renamed in honour of the French Revolution, which started with the storming of the Bastille on the 14th of July, 1789. I love it. It's like revolutionary brothers stick together. And it's almost as old as the French Revolution itself. This sugar mill was built in 1830 and it's still in production today. But of course, back in those days, all the workers on the plantations and the sugar mills would have been slaves.
Slavery was abolished in Cuba as late as 1886. Just 2 years later, a railway was built here at the mill to provide a new way of bringing in the harvested sugarcane. Remarkably, the original tracks built in the 1880s haven't been replaced and are still in use today.
That's a serious working engine. Woo!
The trains used here are almost modern in comparison, built in the 1970s.
This is such an old locomotive. It was built in the Soviet Union, and like everything, it's just falling apart. You can't afford new parts for it. There aren't any new parts for it, like the old cars, really. And check this out. This is the accelerator. That's what he pulls manually to speed it up. How nuts is that? But it works. Well,
The 19th century track is very narrow and so old and wobbly that occasionally some of the wagons derail, despite being pulled slowly.
there's one of the sugarcane carriages that didn't quite make it.
The job of the trains is to bring in harvested sugarcane from a central collection point.
Well, this is the process. We brought the empty carriages here, stuffed them on there. All the cut-up sugarcane is conveyor belted up there and then poured into the carriages and taken to the sugar mill.
Despite the ancient railway and trains that it has to make do with, the 14th of July mill is one of Cuba's more efficient sugar mills. But whereas Cuba produced 1/3 of the world's sugar back in the 19th century, today its share of the world sugar market is just 1%.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Woo. To me, this is what an old sugar mill is all about. Huge, great, beautiful cogs going round and round and round. You've got the furnaces, it's hot. You can smell the sugar in there. It's absolutely beautiful. This is the raw sugar, still warm. Oh, that's lovely.
After returning to Cienfuegos, it's time to head on to my next destination, which is said to be an even more beautiful and historic city.
The next part of the journey, I can't go by train because what happened, there was a railway bridge and the hurricane blew it to bits. That was 20 years ago and they still ain't mended it. But it doesn't matter, there's other modes of transport, as you can see. Hola? A taxi? Trinidad?
Trinidad.
Yeah? Yeah? Okay. That was simple, so far.
The road trip out of Cienfuegos en route to Trinidad takes me through a sparsely populated, very scenic mountain landscape. Having left Cienfuegos in the late afternoon for the 50-mile journey to Trinidad, where I'm staying a day before returning to Santa Clara, it's almost dark by the time we see Trinidad in the distance at the foot of the mountains. Founded more than 500 years ago, the historic city of Trinidad is extremely well preserved, and apart from Havana and beach resorts, it's the most popular tourist destination in all of Cuba. What everybody's here to see are the grand mansions of Trinidad's former plantation owners, who became fabulously wealthy on the profits of sugar and slavery.
This here is known as Brunette's Palace. It was a family home of the Brunette family in the 19th century, and they were one of the richest slave-owning sugar barons in the whole of Trinidad. Let's check the furniture out, shall we? What's this? Oh, wow. That is a posh do. Look at that. No tomato sauce. Ooh. Well, I wasn't wrong about the furniture. Look at that. That is stunning. Detail, all the pictures. Wouldn't want it anywhere near my house, but I still like it. Just over the square there is another rich family's house, maybe even richer because they've got a tower. That is the Quintero Palace.
Like other 19th century plantation owners, Don Justo Quintero had huge number of slaves working for him, but he was also keen to embrace new technology.
This is definitely the best view of the town. Look at that. Because over there you can see that's the valley of sugarcane where all the plantations were. And Quintero, one of the richest owners, he's like, how can I make more money? I want to get more money. Get more money. I've got to get my sugar to the port and export it quicker. So what he did is finance the railway.
These days, Trinidad's former sugar railway carries tourists instead. While waiting for the tourist locomotive to arrive, I check out the other trains around the station.
Look, 3 steam engines all in a row. They don't throw anything away, they just leave them by the side of the road for people to look at, like this. And they look fantastic. It's a great thing to do with them.
When it arrives, the tourist train going to the valley of historic sugar plantations turns out to have the same type of Soviet locomotive used at the 14th of July sugar mill. To be honest, though, I'm much more interested in a very different feature of the train.
I've spotted something on there. Look at it, does it get any better in train travel when you can sit at a bar on a train? Oh, I know I haven't prayed to you for a long time, but thank you, Lord. Woohoo! It's the only time in my life I've ever been in rhythm. It's not me, it's the train and the drink. Look. I feel a bit naughty. I feel like I should be looking at the landscape and enjoying the view, enjoying the, you know, the Cuban vista. But the vista seems to be here. And then, oh, there's some mountains out there. Oh, wow. Big iron bridge coming up. Ooh. Whoa. Wow. I swear to God, it's like being in like the Wild West in America. Look at that old thing. Anyway, back to the drink, eh?
The spectacular train ride through the beautiful valley that made Trinidad rich is shorter than I'd like, taking less than an hour.
Is this it? We finished it. Ah, we're here. I've never been so disappointed in my life.
The place where we've arrived, Manaka Isnaga, was one of the richest sugarcane plantations in the entire valley back in the 19th century. What makes it a tourist attraction today is its remarkable bell tower. An amazing feat of construction. When it was built around 200 years ago, it's all of 150 feet tall.
At the time, it was the highest building in the whole of Cuba. It was built by the sugarcane plantation owners, and through the blood and sweat of slavery, they were rich as hell. Level.
In order to hold on to their filthy riches, the plantation owners made certain that the slaves had no chance of escape into freedom.
Oh, not only was this a bell tower, but it was also a lookout tower, so you could see if runaway slaves were making their escape, because in this valley alone, there were like over 50 sugar mills and about 30,000 slaves working the land. So it's the tallest tower in Cuba, but also probably the most hated.
Today, none of the valley's 50 former sugar mills are still working, but I'm happy to find that there's at least a local stall selling sugarcane juice.
Hola, un guapo, por favor. Gracias. Oh, ooh, cheeky bit of lime in there. This is pure sugarcane juice. Squeezed there, as you can see, nothing else in it. Très naturel. And this to chew? Look, there's a bit of raw sugarcane there to chew on. Don't tempt me with the rum, but I like the way you think. I like that. Wow. That is sweet, but not too sweet. More refreshing.
Looking forward to an even more refreshing return trip to Trinidad. But en route, the journey is interrupted by an unexpected delay.
Look at this, I can't believe it, yeah? There's only one train a day that we're on. Only needs to come back, but then suddenly everyone's on the railways, you know, working, trying to repair everything, so now we've got to wait up there. It's a bit of a pain waiting, but I'm glad that they're putting the new beams in. Look at this. I don't want to go over this in a train. It's absolutely knackered. So I'm prepared to wait, yeah? It's a bit of a drop, too. There you are. I've got to get rid of the maintenance vehicle or whatever it's called so the train can come through. Just getting myself a cheeky little lift. Oh, you know, I deserve it. I've been on that train drinking all day. I've been on every transport now on the railway. Look at this. Great little ride. I wish we were going all the way on this. It's brilliant. Gracias, senor. Fantastic. All right. Here comes our train.
Once the train finally makes it back to Trinidad, the still unfixed bridge further up the line that was broken by the hurricane over 20 years ago means that I have to travel by car in order to return to Santa Clara for the night. Unfortunately for me, my onward train from Santa Clara departs at a very unfriendly hour of 5:30 in the morning.
Trains. Trains are for losers. That's how I feel. Buenos dias. Can I have un café? Por favor? Gracias. Not in a million years did I think that there'd be like a small little coffee stand just outside the station at 5 in the morning. Oh, I don't care what happens to the rest of the day now. That is... Oh, man. Woo! Here we are. This engine is just like the old classic American cars. Pre-revolution, General Motors, made in America. Woo-wee. Downstairs. Oh, man.
From Santa Clara, it's a distance of only just over 100 miles to my next destination, Moron. And yet, incredibly, the journey is scheduled to take nearly 7 hours. That means our average speed will be just 15 miles an hour, if we're on time. No wonder the Cuban trains are so cheap, as I discussed with a fellow passenger.
For me, as a foreigner, you know, I'm going halfway across the island for 7 hours journey on the train, and it's costing me about $5. What's the price for the Cubans on this train?
5 Cuban pesos in our own currency.
That's like 25 times cheaper than what I'm paying, which is extraordinary. I mean, it's cheap, and I would recommend tourists to go on the train always. But you have to have a mentality on the Cuban train that like anything could happen. You know, maintenance can break down or there's something on the line, but nobody gets angry or worries about it.
That's true. Those things happen. But everybody knows that if a train breaks, we are going to wait maybe 1 hour, maybe one hour and a half.
Yeah, maybe 7 hours.
Or maybe 7 hours, why not?
Yeah,
but
I was on one for 7 hours.
I believe you. But at the end, you reach your destiny, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. It's not their fault. It's just that everybody knows that sometimes we don't have their pieces.
No, you're right. Since the US embargo, we can't get new parts and everything, so I suppose everyone just accepts that, yeah?
Exactly.
The train is so chock-a-block with people. Absolutely rammed, even standing up. No seats, no nothing. Here we go, the moment of truth. I won't be long. I think I can hang on for another 12 hours. Cesar. What's all that? What's it? Wait for it, wait for it. What? Oh! You've been hiding this from me, man. Oh, I love this. Peanut butter brittle, look at that. Woo! I've been on the train for about 5 hours, didn't even realise they sold food. Oh. Wow. Of course you can have some. Journey. We're only about 5 minutes away from the station, and for a journey that is like 7 hours, I think we're under half an hour late, and that's about it. That's quite a good feat. Wouldn't get that in England, would you? Some people will say, oh, Ian, surely you've come home. This is where you started, yeah? But it's not pronounced moron, all right? It's moron.
Moron is an attractive small town with what seems an easygoing atmosphere. But all the signs I see everywhere don't seem to be very friendly at all. Of special interest to me is that Moron has a large train maintenance depot, which is where Cuba's entire fleet of pre-revolution 1950s American locomotives are serviced and repaired. The train turntable here was built by the British back in the 1920s.
This is something else. I've only seen this like on Thomas the Tank Engine when I was a kid, that little cartoon. It's so amazing. Like a train spotter would wake up at night sweating from head to toe, just dreaming of standing where I am. This is wonderful.
As the saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention. And that's certainly true here, where the mechanics somehow keep the old 1950s American trains going, just like Cuba's classic cars are kept on the road too, despite spare parts being almost impossible to get because of the US embargo.
You making this? Look at that, what a beautiful hunk of metal. What I like about this place, it reminds me of school, like when I did metalwork, all the lathes chugging away. Since the revolution, they've kept these locomotives going for 60 years by making all the parts, nothing brand new, and they say that they could probably keep them going for another 60 years and even beyond that. For me, that's like your perfect recycling. Doesn't get better than that.
Now heading on to the final destination of my train journey across Cuba, on a short trip to the local provincial capital.
Wow, look at that, I can't believe that. There's 3 trains leaving from Moron to my destination a day. And in Cuban terms, that's like massive, you know? Never a good sign, yeah, when you're 5 minutes before you're leaving and a geezer comes over, a huge great spare part and a massive great monkey wrench, starts doing a bit of maintenance to your train, yeah? Might be here a while, yeah? Hang in there, hang in there.
After what happily turns out to be just a short delay, we're off. From Moron, it's a journey of just 25 miles to the provincial capital of Ciego de Ávila. But even so, the trip is due to take nearly an hour and a half. Luckily for me, I'm in no hurry at all.
Look at that seat. Not the most comfortable in the world. Even the little bits of nails are coming through. When I first started this journey, it was like when you first get onto a horse, you're not used to it and your butt's sort of like, now, look, feel that. That is hard as nails, man. I could sit on anything. I could just go forever with that. Woohoo!
I'm getting off the train at Ciego de Ávila, but the same line continues on from there all the way to the southern coast. And the fact that the railway crosses all the way from coast to coast, cutting the country in 2 halves, is the clue to why it was built.
The unique thing about this railway, opposed to all the other railways in Cuba that were built for the sugar industry, this was built purely for military purposes.
The railway was built back in the 1870s during Cuba's wars of independence against its colonial ruler, Spain. Independence fighters controlled much of eastern Cuba and were advancing west towards Havana. So Spain decided to build what in effect was an early version of the Berlin Wall between east and west. My destination, Ciego de Ávila, was the local Spanish military HQ during the building of the fortified border line, which was called La Trocha.
Hola. It's okay?
On the edge of town, you can get an idea of what the La Trocha borderline once looked like. My horse-drawn taxi carriage feels really appropriate, taking me on a journey back to the 19th century.
There you go, you can see it, this little stretch, which they've reconstructed of the whole border. You've got your listening post there, then a little hut for a few soldiers, listening post, all along 50 miles of it. Gracias, senor. Ciao. Every kilometre along the line were these forts. You can just make out the next one up there, that's that white blob. And inside each one, you'd have about 25 soldiers. The only way in was up the ladder. When they got to the top, they pulled the ladder up. There was a little tower in the middle, which was like a lookout, so you could see if the rebels were coming. And then they'd just sit and wait, really. Poke their guns out there if there's any trouble. And that was it. That's a long wait. Here comes the freight train. See, back in the day when this line was built, that train would be full of hundreds of soldiers, ammunition, guns, and it would be patrolling this border up and down. There was about 6 trains. Any time of any sniff of trouble, the trains would be there trying to repel the rebels.
The Spanish thought that the use of military trains would make La Trocha impregnable. But Cuban independence fighters broke through the barricade of barbed wire between the forts surprisingly often.
This here monument marks the spot of the biggest breakthrough. Back in November 1895, 1,500 rebels come surging across the barbed wire through the Spanish lines under the cover of fog. And it was that action that changed the course of the war. And shortly after, Cuba won its independence.
Back to the present day, and as luck would have it, my visit to Ciego de Ávila coincides with a big baseball match at the city stadium.
Listen to that atmosphere, man. I was just walking past, I saw the stadium absolutely rammed with people. I thought I'm gonna have some of that. And of course, baseball, the biggest sport in the whole of Cuba. I don't even know who's playing, but I'm looking forward to it. Woo, 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 woo. Supporters down there, that's the enemy, yeah? Their motif is the horse, and Ciego is the tiger. Horse and tiger, man. Ah. Here we go. There's a new picture. The bases are loaded. The batsman's in. I don't know what it means, but there's going to be a score right now. Woo!
The final afternoon of my trip through Cuba, and I'm keen that my varied experience of Cuban trains should finish on a high. Just outside Ciego de Ávila, situated on La Trocha train line, is one of Cuba's 50 or so remaining sugar mills. which, like most of Cuba's working mills, still uses diesel trains to bring in much of the sugarcane. Until as recently as 15 years ago, however, many of Cuba's sugar mills use steam trains instead. To check this out, I head to another nearby sugar mill, one of the more than 100 that have recently closed down.
This is an old sugar mill that they've turned into a brilliant museum. It's got all these fantastic steam trains that used to work this mill, but the best thing about it is they've got a steam train that works and you can go on it. Oh, yeah!
Manufactured in the USA, like so many of Cuba's trains, a short ride on this magnificent and beautifully preserved steam train is the perfect way to end my trip. All along the line, the sugarcane harvest is still underway. It's a shame, of course, that spectacular steam trains are no longer used to bring in the harvest. But modernisation is bound to happen, even in a country that has changed as slowly as Cuba.
What a crazy, fantastic, and sometimes frustrating journey. And all through the eyes of the railway, the whole of Cuba laid out in front of me. And this engine sums it all up. And now Cuba is at right crossroads of an incredible change. But the one thing that will always prevail is the love, the warmth, the integrity, and the sheer energy of the Cuban people. And that is why I love this country. Woohoo!